Can you imagine being threatened with losing your home over a fishing rod? That's exactly what happened to me when I crossed paths with Margaret Voss, the iron-fisted HOA president of Willow Creek Estates. She slapped me with a $25,000 fine, a lien on my property, and a smear campaign, all because I dared to cast a line into a lake I had every right to fish in. Margaret, drunk on her own power, thought she could scare me into submission, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. At 63, with 25 years as a property lawyer under my belt, I wasn't about to let her bully me out of my sanctuary. What started as a quiet morning ritual became a full-blown war against corruption, and by the end, Margaret was begging for forgiveness in front of 200 neighbors. 6 months ago, I moved to Willow Creek, chasing peace after a brutal divorce that left me with half my SAVYNGS and no contact with my 2 grown kids. The lakefront house cost me $750,000 a fortune, but worth every penny for the private dock and access to Crystal Lake. Every weekend I'd brew coffee, grab my tackle box, and fish from my dock, the rod my dad gave me years ago, tethering me to simpler times. The mist would hug the water, the sunrise painting it gold, and for a few hours, the world felt right again. That is, until Margaret Voss stormed in. It was a crisp Saturday when I heard her heels clicking down the path. Margaret, with her perfectly coiffed platinum hair and a scowl that could curdle milk, marched toward me, flanked by her minions, Paul Decker and Emily Tate. "Mr. Carter," she barked, showing a violation notice in my face. "Fishing's prohibited. Do law 500 fine, first offense." Her eyes sparkled with smug glee, like she'd caught me committing a felony. I nearly dropped my rod. "There's no rule against fishing," I said, keeping my cool. I'd read the HOA bylaws cover to cover before buying. She smirked, handing me a paper claiming a new rule banned fishing as disruptive. No vote, no notice, just her word. My gut screamed something was wrong. Years in court had taught me to trust that instinct, so I'd started recording the moment they approached, my phone tucked in my pocket. Margaret had no clue she was already sinking her own ship. "You should have read the email we sent," Emily mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "Ignorance is no excuse," Margaret snapped, her tone dripping with condescension. I packed up, staying calm, but inside, I was strategizing. Margaret thought I was some pushover retiree, but I'd faced down developers and HOAs tougher than her. Back home, I checked my emails, no trace of their so-called notice. Out my window, I caught Margaret snapping photos of my dock, her smile pure venom. "You don't know who you're messing with," I muttered. I wasn't about to let her steal my peace. I called my neighbor, Jim Larson, a retired teacher who'd lived here for 2 decades. Over coffee, he spilled the dirt. Margaret had ruled Willow Creek like a dictator for 8 years, inventing rules, favoring her cronies, and punishing anyone who dared question her. "She's vicious," he warned, pointing out the pristine landscaping near her house while the rest of the lakefront crumbled. Another neighbor, Rachel Moore, told me Margaret had fined her due law $1,000 for pre-approved solar panels, then harassed her with petty citations until she paid half to make it stop. I dug into the HOA's founding documents. Crystal Lake was a common area, and fishing was explicitly allowed unless state laws were broken. Rule changes needed 75 fan trim homeowner approval. Margaret Spann had no such vote. At the county records office, I learned the lake was city property, with the HOA only handling landscaping. Margaret had zero authority to ban fishing. The city manager, Tom Bradley, rolled his eyes when I mentioned Willow Creek. "Margaret's been trying to privatize that lake for years," he said. "We've shut her down 3 times. He hinted she was funneling HOA funds to her allies' properties and suggested I check the financials. Then Margaret upped the ante. A second letter demanded due law $1,000 for my continued violation, threatening a lien if I didn't pay. A third, from a shady law firm, accused me of harassing the community by talking to neighbors, demanding due law $10,000 for causing emotional distress. The audacity was almost funny, but the threat to my home was dead serious. Margaret's letters, dripping with fake legal jargon and signed with a flourish, were pure intimidation. Sipping scotch on my porch, staring at the lake's calm surface, I made my choice. I wasn't paying. I wasn't levying. I was fighting. I called my sister, Laura, an investigative journalist. "This is textbook HOA abuse," she said. "Send me everything." Then I got a break. Emily Tate, the HOA secretary, showed up at my door shaking. "The fishing rule wasn't voted on," she whispered. "Margaret faked the minutes and threatened to boot me if I talked." She handed me falsified records and emails pro-vying Margaret targeted dissenters. Armed with this, I drafted a letter to the HOA board, demanding proof of the rule's legitimacy and hinting at lawsuits for their overreach. I sent it certified, copying every board member to corner Margaret. She fired back with a community-wide email, painting me as a troublemaker who tanked property values. It was a slick move, but it backfired. I went door to door, sharing my evidence. Neighbors, fed up with Margaret's fines for nonsense like wrong-colored curtains, rallied behind me. A retired judge, Walter Hayes, called her actions textbook overreach and offered legal advice. When Margaret's lackey, Paul, started tailing me during these talks, glaring from across the street, it only stoked the neighbors' anger. The tipping point came when Margaret's law firm accused me of holding unauthorized HOA meetings after I threw a backyard barbecue. They demanded $25,000, claiming my cookout was a conspiracy against the board. I laughed, but the stakes were sky high. Laura connected me with a local reporter, Sarah Klein, who ran a front-page story exposing Margaret's fraud from fake rules to do $50,000 in shady payments to her cousin's shell company. The article was a bombshell, and Margaret's flustered press conference, where she stammered when grilled about the lake's ownership, only dug her deeper. I organized a community picnic by the lake, inviting everyone to fish and reclaim their rights. Over 100 residents showed up, casting lines and swapping stories of Margaret's tyranny. When cops arrived, tipped off by her disturbance complaint, they saw families laughing and left, visibly annoyed at her antics. The city sent a letter to every resident, confirming the lake's public status and slapping Margaret down. But she wouldn't quit. She marked my healthy maple trees for removal, using her brother-in-law's company, and targeted my allies with fines for absurdities like excessive bird feeder activity. The final showdown came at a packed HOA meeting. Nearly 200 residents crammed into the clubhouse, the air buzzing with tension. Margaret tried to hijack the agenda, but Walter, moderating, kept her in check. The city's financial inspector revealed $52,000 in misdirected funds tied to Margaret's family. Emily stood, voice trembling, and exposed Margaret's falsified records, holding up damning emails. "You'll regret this," Margaret hissed, but the room was done with her. When I played my recording of her dockside lies, gasps echoed through the crowd. The no-confidence vote was a landslide. 86 fan tram ousted her entire board. Margaret stormed out, vowing we'd all pay, but her reign was over. The new board voided her fines, ordered an audit, and recovered most of the stolen funds. Margaret settled, dropping her claims and issuing a grudging apology to dodge my lawsuit. The city posted a sign affirming fishing rights, and I hosted Willow Creek's first official fishing day. As I taught a neighbor's kid to cast, the lake sparkled with laughter, alive with the community we'd fought for. What started as a battle over my rod became a war against corruption, and we won.